All right, I think we're good to go here. Hello, everybody. Hello out there in Lynchpin Land. Hope everybody is well. Because the world needs to be well at this point in time, that's for darn sure. Today is June 16th, and to say that there has been a lot going on, I mean, in the world in general, but then in the CrossFit world and landscape would probably be the understatement of more than the year, understatement of the decade, and understatement. Let's just leave it at that. So, I don't know how everybody else feels, but for me, there's been plenty of stress, plenty of drama, plenty of everything. My cup runneth over, and a small return to normalcy would be wonderful for my psyche. So, even if there's still craziness everywhere in the world, for the next 10 minutes or so in this video, we're just going to have a bit of a return to our normally scheduled program. And if craziness is something you're searching for, you can go find it somewhere, but it won't be here. So that's it. So generally on Tuesdays, I do an Instagram live video about a topic that has rolled in. The one that I planned on doing last week, when the sky was falling, was about nutrition. And I made a video saying, didn't feel right, gonna pause that, and I'll circle back next week and ideally get back to presenting information that I hope people find useful to improve their lives. So today is a short video about nutrition. And this was several questions that have rolled in from folks, and I kind of rolled it into one. So here's going to be my tagline, if you will, the clickbait as to what the title of this video probably could be. And the title of this video could be, I could be leaner, but I'm not. And then it could be ... And that's a conscious choice, and I'm actually okay with that because that leads me to having a far higher quality of life. And I probably could be a little bit leaner, and the extra work and attention to detail and discipline and decisions and sacrifices, I think, would have more of a negative consequence on my psyche and how often I smiled or frowned than having a couple more lines visible in my midsection, which is a juggling act. Now, I could be leaner. I am lean. I'm actually, for the first time I'm historically never happy with my body composition. It is how it is. I think a lot of people struggle with body composition issues, never being satisfied, always looking to somebody else and being like, if I could only just, if maybe I just, what could I do? And I'm human, for sure, and I fall into that trap frequently, a lot, for sure. But within the last 2 or 3 years, I've really made a dedicated effort to try to block that noise out, focus on myself, and just try to find what is a good balance in my life that allows me to... Everything's a juggling act, right? You can't have it all. I wanted to try to find something which would allow me to have a high level of physical fitness, the work that I do in the gym, but without living in the gym all day long. I've got no interest in that. And then on the nutrition side, if you will, a way to eat that ideally was supportive of long-term health, nice body composition, but wasn't so suffocating and restrictive and overly filled with rules and regulations that I would have a very low level of compliance to it. I would probably crash and burn and fail more often than I would be successful. And I like food. I really enjoy food. So I still want to be able to have things that I find are tasty. And striking that balance is so difficult. And so I'm just going to say what has worked for me. It may not work for you in any way, shape, or form. What I'm doing doesn't have a particular name. It's just over 15 years of experimenting, this is where I've landed. So, and I thought it was appropriate because on the every Tuesday on the Lynchpin private Facebook group, we have some themes that we do over the course of the week. Everybody enjoys a theme. Tuesdays are Tasty Tuesdays, and I post every Tuesday, in the private Facebook group, Tasty Tuesday. Post a photo of a meal that you ate today. Let's use the power of the Lynchpin community to help each other eat delicious, healthy meals. If you have a recipe, meal prep strategy, or other resource, please feel free to post it below. Enjoy. So every Tuesday, food's always on my mind because I enjoy food, but every Tuesday it bubbles up to the surface. So, where to start with this? I eat real food, and I know that can sound corny or cliche or whatnot, and while a meal that I have every now and then might fall into a certain category, like, oh, that meal looks like it's the zone. That meal looks like you count your macros. Oh, your breakfast looks like it might be paleo. That looks like fill in the blank with whatever happens to be the hot topic. I try in general to avoid those particular labels because I think as soon as you identify one of those labels, you put yourself in a camp and you just start going to war with the rival faction from the other camp. So if you're a paleo man or woman, you're probably very passionate about that, and you have a list of reasons as to why it's the best and why other things are not quite as cool. Same as if it's, if you're a zone, if you're a count your macros, if you're whatever it happens to be. So the mere fact of just right off the bat not labeling it something like that might help you have a conversation with somebody and actually might help keep your sanity a little bit as well. Ooh, shout out from Italy. What's up, Italy? I know my first name is Patrick, which is Irish, but half of me is a mix of everything around the world and half of me is Italian, so I'm more Italian than anything else. And maybe that's where the love of food comes in. I don't know, but I love to eat. So I eat real food, and we've said this before, by real food, here's an oversimplification. And this is like how I explain it to my kids, because they'll want to know if Lego waffles are real food. And I'll say real food really doesn't have any ingredients, right? If you pick up a piece of salmon, there's no ingredient. It's just a piece of salmon. An apple is just an apple. Asparagus is just asparagus. Water is just water. An avocado is just avocado. And when you pick something up and it comes in a box and there's a list of 5 to 35 ingredients, most of which you've got no idea what they are, there's a really good chance that that's not real food, that is processed food. So that's relatively simple, and most people can get their head around that. And then, so that's the no ingredients one. And then an even easier way to eat that I've tried to instruct my parents regarding nutrition, because believe it or not, it never changes. Even with me dedicating my entire life to health, fitness, making people fitter, faster, stronger, and healthier, and trying to avoid chronic disease, my own parents don't listen to me. That's just how it is with parents and kids. So I'll try to give them some very simple advice, which is, in general, when you go to the grocery store, in general, if you didn't walk down any aisle, you would do yourself some good if you just stuck to the perimeter of the grocery store, because most grocery stores, the perimeter has fruits, vegetables, probably your seafood, deli, meats, things of that nature. Now, granted, most grocery stores will put the bakery and the breads on the perimeter. How dare they? So that messes up my nice little example there. But if you walked just around that one section of the perimeter, you would do yourself well. And most of the junk that's going to sink the ship is found in the aisles of the grocery store. Not all of it, but mostly. So again, that's an oversimplified version, but it will treat most people pretty darn well. So, I try to eat real food, and I weighed and measured for years and years of my life. I did the zone diet. Years. I don't weigh and measure on a regular basis anymore, but weighing and measuring for years gave me a relatively decent perspective as to what an appropriate amount of food is, what an inappropriate amount of food is, how much chicken or steak is 30 grams of protein or 50 grams of protein, the carbohydrate loading of an apple or banana, or how much broccoli do you have to eat, which is a tremendous amount, by the way. And so it was very useful for that, and that knowledge base is still in the back of my head, even if I'm not weighing and measuring when I'm putting stuff on my plate to make sure that I've got ample protein, I'm not overdoing it with the carbohydrates, that there's some fat in there, etc., etc. So weighing and measuring, I do feel has value, but I don't think most people are going to do it every day of their life until the day that they die. And maybe they'll do it for a while, step away, do it for a while, they'll recalibrate their eye, step away. That could be useful as well, but I don't think it's something that, is sustainable forever and ever and ever. And I did it for a long time. A typical breakfast for me, would be 3 strips of delicious bacon, probably 4 scrambled eggs. I might sprinkle some cheese into the eggs, I guess depending upon if you're in one of the branded nutrition camps, some sprinkling of cheese might immediately make me the devil and I'm going to die, but I sprinkle a little cheese in my scrambled eggs, just a bit. It gives it a wonderful consistency and I find it very delicious. And then I'll have some fruit on the side. Usually, whatever's in season, but usually some sliced up strawberries or blueberries, something like that. How much fruit? I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. It's a modest-sized bowl of fruit. And, I've got my coffee in the morning, and I usually wash down my breakfast with some water. And breakfast is some variation of that. Bacon and eggs with some sort of fruit on the side. I mean, darn near every day of my life. And I never get sick of it. Every day I find it delicious. And it's simple stuff like that breakfast. Okay, could you make a serious argument that, well, Pat, I'm disappointed. You're having a bowl of strawberries there with your breakfast. You really should be having some sautéed spinach. You really should lean towards the vegetables. Can't believe you're eating fruit. You're going to die. That's the road that I think when people go down, they miss the larger point of just avoiding processed food, of embracing real food, of making a good decision versus maybe trying to make a perfect decision, which is not sustainable, and realizing that what I did for far too many years of my life was I would have that breakfast, but then I would also have just like a massive bagel with that, or a couple pieces of toast or something like that, which, in the right proportions, that's a balancing act that some folks can do, but you've got a much wider strike zone with strawberries than you do with bagels. And so it's a lot easier to get off the rails consuming bagels than it is with strawberries. Now, would it be even better if maybe I was embracing some, again, sautéed veggies with my breakfast instead of the fruit? Yes, it probably would, but I'm here to tell you, I know myself relatively well. I would be all fired up and do that for a day or two, and I wouldn't do it forever and ever. It wouldn't do it. But I can eat fruit every day. It's delicious. It's far better than a lot of crap I could put in my body, and life's pretty good. And so I do that. I don't think fruit is the work of the devil. I think, again, there's always a better choice you can make and a worse choice. And I don't think one day I will be laying on my deathbed and people go, geez, what happened to Pat? We're losing him far before we thought we were going to. And somebody will go, it was the strawberries. That dude ate strawberries almost every day of his life, and now he's gone. We lost him. I could be wrong. I just, in my heart, don't feel that's the story that will be told. It will probably be some other factor that did it, not the strawberries. So that's that. Lunch is typically some sort of meat, whatever we've got in the fridge. Could be lean, could be fatty, whatever it happens to be. Let's be honest, there's probably more fruit. I'm grabbing an apple or something like that, some grapes. Again, trying to have some actual real food instead of making a sandwich. I could take that same meat and make a sandwich, but I really do try to avoid bread, so I'm going to grab some sort of piece of fruit. If it's a lean meat, I'll have some avocado or something like that, and I'll have a delicious lunch. And the sort of fruit or the sort of meat, that could vary, but it's generally that sort of a recipe. I know myself, and like I said, I should eat more vegetables. that is my Achilles heel, that if I had to improve one area, that's what it would be. So that's breakfast and lunch. Now dinner rolls in. My wife and I've got two kids. We've got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and we try to walk that incredibly fine line with kids where we don't force overly restrictive, crazy nutrition on them. So I've got some family and friends that do that with their families, and maybe that works for you and your kids. If it does, great. That's fantastic. But I've seen it backfire a lot, where some parents try to get so restrictive with kids, and it seems to work in their house. And the reason that it seems to work in their house is because they don't have anything sweet in their house. They don't have any treats in their house. So the kids really can't go off the rails. So the kids look like they're doing quite well with it. Then those kids come over to our house, and or a birthday party, or wherever, where there happens to be a variety of foods, ones that would be good decisions and ones that would be bad decisions, and those same children that seem to have been such well-disciplined little creatures in their own home are ferocious, sugar-craving lunatics. And that's because I just truly believe that if your only two options are 0 or 100, the extremes, those usually don't have a very high level of compliance. Something that has a bit more wiggle room is fundamentally sound, embracing good principles of how you should eat, but has a little bit of wiggle room to keep you sane. I think that's the delicate balance to walk with yourself, with your children, with everything, and I think it keeps you happy and healthy for years and years, but I also think it keeps you actually on track and doesn't have these, you're super strict for a week, but then you couldn't do it, so you crash for a week, then you're back for a week, then you crash for a week, and that's no good. So whatever, we've got two kids, and whatever we have for dinner, I'll have for dinner. I don't fear a cheeseburger. I don't fear it. As a matter of fact, I consider it a friend, a friend that makes me smile. Now, I don't have French fries because that would not be good, and that would put me over the edge. But I don't fear a cheeseburger. If we're somewhere at dinner and there's some meat and vegetables, and somebody has made some nice dinner rolls, some delicious looking like dinner rolls that are fresh out of the oven, and when you slice it in half and you put a little pat of butter on it, it just beautifully soaks into the bread. You know what I'm talking about. You know how it smells. You know how it feels. You know the texture. You know the taste. I don't fear that. I'll have a dinner roll. It's fantastic. But the thing is, I don't do that all the time. If I did that all the time, I'd be telling a story right now about how I'm not happy with my body composition, and every time I look in the mirror I'm depressed, etc., etc. But allowing that every now and then just hits that little pressure release that allows me to be a human being and still be fit and healthy and live here on planet Earth and associate with other human beings that aren't potentially as absolutely lunatic crazy as most people I know about nutrition are, and share a meal and be good to go. So that's it. But I will say, while I allow myself to do that, what I avoid regularly, I think, are some of the key culprits. And avoiding, for me anyway, this is just me personally, avoiding the key culprits does allow me to have that little bit of strike zone, to have the cheeseburger, to have the dinner roll at so-and-so's house, whatever it happens to be. The general things that I avoid 99% of the time, I don't eat, cookies, cakes, brownies, ice cream, candy, chips, French fries, sugary drinks, stuff like that I think it's really easy for a lot of people to snack on regularly, if not daily, and snack between meals and have a little something every night before you go to bed, and those things, so maybe they look at their meals during the day and their meals actually look pretty good, but what they don't realize is they're sprinkling in all that other stuff that I mentioned with far more regularity than they probably realize. And I did that for far too long, quite frankly, and when I finally had the discipline to put those things to the side, I realized that my strike zone with my regular meals could expand incredibly and my body composition actually got better because the cookies, cakes, brownies, ice cream, chips, french fries, etc., you don't have to, if you mess up your portion just by a little bit on one of those things that I mentioned, the load of sugar that you can flood into your body is through the roof. Now, if today when I have breakfast, I happen to slice up 2 more strawberries with my breakfast than I normally do, it does not have the same effect. 2 extra strawberries isn't the same as 2 extra cookies or an extra sugary drink over the course of the day or whatever. I mean, it's not even in the same galaxy. So when you actually eat most of the time real food, unprocessed food that is not made up of ingredients, it is what it is, I think you have a very wide strike zone. Whereas if you're making poor choices or eating largely processed, junky kind of a food, you have a very tight strike zone. And any slip up in portion size could be catastrophic. So that's basically it. Anyway, somebody says that they enjoy whiskey for breakfast. Hey, to each their own. To each their own. Let me do a quick scroll and see if I missed anything before I go actually make that breakfast that I mentioned there. Bunch of waves and thumbs up. People say they struggle with this. Hey, we all do. I'm here to tell you. Somebody just wrote ice cream. I know, ice cream is so good. Holy cow. At the Shadow from Italy. Talking about how weighing and measuring is a great tool. People enjoyed hearing about the bagels. Bagels are delicious, right? I know. I'm from the East Coast. Trust me, I've eaten plenty and plenty and plenty of bagels. Okay. All right. That's it. I'm going to finish my coffee, and I'm immersed in the next 4 weeks of the programming cycle for Linchpin. I just started doing it yesterday. I'll do a quick flash of this paper because I don't want to give away anything. Here's some... Ooh, not even see, that was just the quickest flash in the world. Somebody will probably pause that on the screen and try to figure out what it is, but I'm already looking at where we've been, figuring out where we need to go, putting, there's good stuff in the future, good workouts in the future. So hopefully everyone smiles as much as they can, treats each other with kindness, because the world needs it, and, favorite Latin American dish. Ooh, okay, that messed up my closing. I've spent a lot of time in Latin America, and some of the best. Now, this is bad. You painted me into a corner, because if I say some of the countries that I had the best food in, that's going to imply that, I didn't have great food in the other countries. That's not the case. Some of the best food that I've had was when I did that motorcycle trip with Ian Wittenberg. And particularly, I'm thinking steaks and carne asada was just incredible. And the places in my mind that stood out for that, Mexico was phenomenal, the food that we ate there. Colombia, specifically Medellin, oh my goodness, we had so many good meals in Medellin, Colombia. And they had these, I'm not sure if they were plantains, but frequently they would serve the steak. It was sliced up banana, but it was almost caramelized, but it wasn't like a traditional plantain. It was so good, it sticks in my mind to this day, and I will have to go back down to Colombia just to have that again. And then the other place I would say is when we eventually made our way down to Argentina and Chile. Oh man, the steak game is on point in Argentina and Chile. It was some of the highlights of my entire life. So that's it. I do a pretty good job of staying on track, but the topic of food, I could spiral out of control. All right, have a great day. I'm going to get some breakfast. We'll talk later.